Hello, Steelers Nation. Welcome back to a new episode. In today's episode, we're going to break down continued updates and comments that we received about the Allen Robinson trade. And at the end of this video, we're going to begin talking about some more of the prospects that you wanted me to look at for this draft. Please send me more. The more and more we have, the more we'll do. But once I've covered everyone you guys have brought up, I'm going to begin doing the mock drafts. But without further ado, let's get into yesterday's cream of the crop and recapping what we discussed. So first off, a lot of Steelers Nation was very correct. When I originally read the initial report, it had it backwards. The Steelers were going to be paying the $10 million and the Rams were paying the $5 million. In actuality, that is flipped, which saves the Steelers, another $5 million in cap space, which is always a good thing. But what a lot of people were getting on me about, and it's fair, is I didn't really address what Robinson will be doing for the Steelers, because my number one excitement, and it still is my belief that this opens the doorway to trading Diontae Johnson. And given the fact that Diontae Johnson only adds 7 inches of value once he catches the football, I would rather get rid of him, especially since right now we can still get value for him, since 2 of his last 3 years he had 100 catches, and there's still perception that he can be more than he is. I believe that goes down dramatically this year, and sell your assets when they're highest. That's the reason for getting Diontae out of the room. Not to mention the best asset on this team is George Pickens offensively, and we will get him the ball more. Now, I understand there's no proven there. We tried to throw the ball downfield to him the entire first quarter of the year. Trubisky just threw it to the coach on the sideline. That's all happened. That greatly impacted George Pickens' results. But as Tomlin has said, your second time around the circuit, you're expected to develop and become much more. I completely expect that out of George Pickens. So once again, I am overlooking the fact that we have just gotten Allen Robinson. Well, there's evidence in what the actual trade value was that the Steelers might be doing that too. We swapped 7th round picks. And Steelers Nation, I'm going to ask you guys to do this for me. We had 4 7th round picks here last year. None of them made the team. When is the last time the Steelers have entered into week 1 with a 7th round draft pick from that draft make the team? It's not really that often, and I bet you got to go back to Cowher to do it. So the reality is the Steelers traded 2 non-assets for a $5 million purchase. Now, granted, $5 million is incredibly cheap in the world of wide receivers. It's well below the standard. If you were looking at this from a Madden perspective, $5 million is below the 83 level. So, we're talking about the C minuses and below in terms of economic compensation. So I'm using what the Steelers are telling me economically to kind of keep my check upon the expectations of Allen Robinson. And when I look at this, stepping back, kind of absorbing it a day later, I actually believe that this is an upgrade in the confidence level in what they're showing in Austin and Miller. Now, that being said, that is all predicated on the assumption and maybe trying to do what I want to hear, that Johnson gets moved. Because Allen Robinson is not a special teamer. He's not going to be on this team to be the Boykin role of last year, to be the gunner and the tackler and all of that. That's not him. What he is he's a quality receiver. I'm not going to try to say he's not. He has a role. But he was injured the last 2 years. In a very real sense, this is the offensive version of Witherspoon. Whenever Witherspoon was healthy, he was elite, but it wasn't in a Steelers uniform. And when Robinson was in Chicago, he had moments that he looked elite. Now, for the couple of people out there who goes, well, this means we have faith in Mitch and we're going to make Mitch Berg a thing again. No, not going to happen. Just because he was the number one receiver during Mitch doesn't mean that Mitch is going to be here. On that note, now that we have Miller, Robinson, we have basically all of Chicago's best pass rushers or pass receivers for the last 5 years. And I'm not sure that's a good thing overall, but it's a fun fact. So when we look at what Robinson brings to the table when he's healthy, he does bring the ability to hit the middle of the field, get open on a slant with keeping his feet moving, which is something that Diontae Johnson does not bring to his game. And the reason that this is so important is that, A, you can be open no matter where the quarterback is in the pocket. Because if you get open by finding a hole and sitting in it, and then the quarterback is flushed out of the pocket away from where you're at, you effectively have removed yourself from the play. So if I know Diontae Johnson's going to be on the left, and I know we can give him a hole to sit in, and we can flush the quarterback to the right, we don't even need to cover him because he's not an option. And by the way, this isn't me giving you a hypothetical. Philadelphia did this 6 times in the third quarter last year against them. That's why he was basically a non-factor in the offense, didn't move. And then when they did throw the ball to him, they had already set up where he goes. Allen Robinson's game is not predicated around sitting in holes. He is an on-the-field upgrade if he's healthy. And like I said, that's why he's like Witherspoon. If he's healthy, he's a giant upgrade. But as we enter into this year, 2023 sitting here, none of those 3 big ones that are on the roster right now, you can say are proven assets that will move this team forward. George Pickens is just an unknown because we haven't given him the volume enough. Obviously, Robinson is an unknown because we don't know about what his health will be. In both of those categories, I trust in Tomlin to fix the problem. Tomlin to help develop Pickens and force the offense to use him more. And Robinson, I just trust the medical staff that when he passes his physical, that it will be totally fine and we'll be okay with it. Now, Johnson is in a rapid state of decline and holding the team back. That's why I think we're getting rid of him. And that's why I know Tomlin hates being exposed. He wanted to have a veteran presence that he can rely on if the rookie doesn't step up. If George Pickens doesn't step up, and I'm wrong about all of this potential greatness that's in him, Tomlin would be completely exposed if we trade Johnson away. And there's no way that is a viable option. It's not a good way to run a team. Yes, it's a very bright and shining star to hitch your wagon to. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantee George Pickens will step up. So bringing in Robinson, or really any receiver, Robinson just is the one we got. But any notable good receiver allows Johnson to go. Because if Johnson if Tomlin didn't have another veteran on the team, he would never consider moving Johnson. And again, this all goes back to the notion of, I think Johnson will improve this team by leaving because it'll take his ball share away. And as good as Allen Robinson could be, he's not going to step up anywhere near the same percentage of targets that Diontae Johnson was getting, which was over 10 per game last year. There's no way that's going to happen whenever we basically have George Pickens here and Kenny Pickett on a fresh relationship and no established Steeler production to take away from that. So I believe that that's going to happen. Benefit number 1 of trading Diontae Johnson. Benefit number 2, we're going to get a massive stud in return. I don't believe that Johnson gets moved just for a straight 3, even though I think that's what his true value is right now. I think he's part of the pairing for the first round accelerant. And the reason I am so strongly adamant for trading up and why the Steelers need to do it is because there are only 3 players on this entire roster that I can guarantee you what I will get out of them given any circumstances. There are 2 outside linebackers in Watt and Highsmith, and Cam Hayward. You can't even say that about Minka because everyone in front of him needs to be healthy for Minka truly to work efficiently. We look at how he basically got taken out of the game 2 years ago because our middle linebackers couldn't exist. He had to tackle everyone. He wasn't able to go out and make all the steals and interceptions that he does. Minka gets better with everyone else being a lead around. It's kind of the nature of being a safety for one. So I don't believe that just putting more bodies out there with high potential are the right answer. I believe putting one person out there who is already jumping off the bus as a bona fide elite player is how you do that. And you only get those in the top 10. So that is why ultimately I believe that putting Gonzalez and, if we would be lucky. If we would be lucky if Jalen Carter would drop to us and we'd be able to afford moving up to him. Either one of those two players instantly upgrade and without a doubt multiply the value of this team where your strength that you know about is at and you're better off. Also, if you go that direction, it truly allows Kenny to say, this is my team or I'm not an NFL quarterback. You give him all of the ability from the sense that there's no one in his way. There is no, I have to placate to this receiver or else he will bitch and complain. And because he's the highest paid offensive player, he's the most senior offensive player, we need to bow down to him. Getting that potential problem out of the team is massive. We haven't really had that issue in Steelers Nation, but it is a massive issue around the NFL. And the likelihood of it being here does exist. And if you can nip a problem in a bud, you do it now. So I apologize again. I just went off track and got off of what Robinson brings to the table. Robinson does bring leadership. Robinson brings being on a bad team that didn't make the playoffs and then being on teams that have made the playoffs and then being on the other side of the roller coaster of seeing we just won the Super Bowl and we haven't done anything. So Robinson has seen success. He has seen abysmal failure when expectations are high. And he's coming into a team that, because we are Steelers Nation, expect things to work. We are literally had arguments about firing a Hall of Fame coach because he hasn't won a playoff game since 2017. That's the Steelers Nation expectation. You win in January. You get to meaningful games in February. And do I believe that the offense is capable of putting up all of the points to do that and beat Mahomes in a shootout or Cincinnati in a shootout? No. And I will never believe that as long as Matt Canada is in charge, because I can read his track record. Points don't get put on the board under him under any tenure relative to what they did before and after him. He is not an upgrade anywhere in the history of his career, nor does he develop people. I have done many episodes about why Canada should not be our offensive coordinator. That's not where I'm going here. The point is that the defense is what's going to make this team win or lose. And making it the absolute best in the NFL, without a doubt, putting on an elite corner in Gonzalez, putting in the future Cam Hayward next to the current Cam Hayward in Jalen Carter. Those are massive upgrades to where you can say we have a true foundation and we can win games that don't score points. The Jets almost made the playoffs with no quarterback whatsoever and having an elite defense. Our quarterback situation is immensely better. Our offensive line is better than the Jets. And overall, our skill positions are all better than the Jets. We have a better defensive-minded head coach. And at the end of the day, we play in a division that's easier than the Jets. So when we look at this, there is no reason that this team cannot step up and firmly cement itself in the playoffs and then derail some other people's dreams. This defense can be elite, mind-shatteringly good, and at the end of the day, We just need an offense that is capable and competent. It should not be out of the realm to put up 14 points in the first half. And if the Steelers offense will consistently do that, TJ Watt will break the sack record. And Highsmith will be a giant compliment to it. This team will shatter sacks everywhere. And the number one way a defense wins in the NFL is sacking the quarterback. We have the best defensive tandem in the world of doing that right now. And the bottom line is let them feed. So yes, getting Johnson to get me a massive upgrade at the defensive personnel's position, yes. 100% yes. Do I think that on the field, tangibly, Allen Robinson is going to make a giant difference for the Steelers? Yes, but only because it will involve the subtraction of Diontae Johnson. Allen Robinson himself is a great compliment. If Allen Robinson returns, I guess this is the other bias I need to explicitly say. I don't think he's coming back to the way that he was 3 years ago, before he was a Ram. I just don't see that happening. But if he does, we want a home run on this trade. And he can be a 1,000-yard receiver on something like 80 catches. That is totally possible. And if you have both George Pickens doing more than that, and that as your number two, it's completely potential to set this offense on fire. So I went a little bit longer with the first part, breaking down the importance and letting it simmerate what I felt about the Allen Robinson trade. Now I'm going to throw on one of the defensive or one of the draft pick players that you guys wanted me to talk about. That'll be coming up right now. And then tomorrow will be a lot more of the draft pick players that you want me to talk about. So put them in the comments. I will break them down. And if there's anyone I missed, please let me know, but I'm pretty sure I caught them all. So here's the first one today, and the rest of them will come out tomorrow. Keondre Coburn from the University of Texas. He's a defensive tackle who, when people just hear that, your first thought is going to be, oh, the big snack, Casey Hampton. Not exactly the worst combination descriptor, given the fact he's from Texas D tackle. Dude's a big boy. There's no way around that. You weigh in at Texas at 333. You got some poundage to him. Height at 6'2", a little bit light for interior D lineman, but at the end of the day, the guy has a bull rush that is crazy. He is great at demanding double team blocks and not getting blown up by them, which sometimes when you get those bigger bodies, once you get them rolling backwards, it kind of comes like a hurricane and boom, everything's down. We got an avalanche in the middle of our backfield. Do I think that Coburn has great potential? The amount that he stepped up his junior year to senior year in terms of pressuring the quarterback, especially when he was left on one-on-one coverage, which would be the case in this defense, was very, very promising. The dude figured out how to start creating pressures in the backfield in a way that you don't normally see someone step up in the interior defensive line. Basically, for interior linemen, you either see them just kind of be plotters and that's what I do, and I just kind of take up space because I'm a big guy and that's what the defense wants of me. But very rarely do you see them step out of that mode and become a bona fide pass rusher. And that's what we got from Coburn in Texas. So is he polished enough to be early second round? No. I would consider him at 49, only if Jalen Carter wasn't gotten there or you didn't take another defensive tackle. I think that Coburn is a suitable option that will allow you to be able to say this is someone we can develop with and progress. But when we look at him right now, I believe his downside and like where his base level would be is basically what we're getting out of Ogunjobi anyway. So a guy who can absorb the blocks, which what Ogunjobi did, but Ogunjobi gives you no pass rush, and if Coburn doesn't develop at this level, he basically becomes the cheap replacement for that being on his rookie contract. Now, from an economic standpoint, I'm okay with that. I believe that the number one thing that could help the Steelers defense overall is replacing the Cam Hayward spot. I don't believe Coburn's ever going to truly develop into that. However, I do believe he's much more likely than he will over Leal, who is currently our swing backup defensive tackle. So Coburn has potential and upside, but that's what we're looking with here. Big-bodied guy in terms of weight, not necessarily in terms of height, so don't expect him to jump up there and swat a bunch of passes down. However, he does have the ability to demand 2 blocks on running plays, which opens up the ability to have a light-bodied middle linebacker behind you like Keondre, which is essential for the coverage scheme of this defense. I think his floor is becoming an Ogunjobi type, which, again, Ogunjobi's having himself a fine career. You can't really criticize that. So, long-term development for the Steelers, does it fit a need? Yeah, it fits the Ogunjobi profile. Is there upside to becoming a pass rusher? Yes, he showed it. It's really there. So, would I want to look at 49 in him? Possibly maybe even sliding back a little bit? Yeah. I mean, it all depends upon where the draft is at. You know, I have him as basically my 3rd or 4th defensive tackle, which, when you look at it in that perspective, might lessen the need to go up and make Jalen Carter the sell-by gate to get that early first pick. The thing with Coburn is that the world is not going to start to bend and change when you put him on the field as a rookie. But he has the potential by year 3 to be a guy that gets circled and say, we can't have him beat us. And the more pass rushers you have that demand utmost attention, the better you will be. I think is a great person to throw into the mix. It perplexes me about why Leal was drafted in the first place, because that's not really what Leal is. Leal was like, again, Leal is more of the old Brett Kiesel style, which they don't really use anymore in this current defense. When we look at Coburn, if he is not ahead of Leal on the depth chart at the end of this season, I think that either one of two things will have been proven. Either Leal stepped up beyond my measure and is very, very effective, or Coburn just doesn't happen. Either way, I definitely think he's worth the roll of the dice. I believe it's much more likely that he falls into the line of an Ogunjobi as his floor. And I also think he has a much bigger upside than what Ogunjobi has shown, especially as a Steeler, with an ability to get some pass rush in his body as he develops here in the NFL. Have zero problem whatsoever if Coburn ends up being a Steeler, especially if he's at 49 or later. Great one to recommend to me, guys. Please keep sending me the other players that you want me to check out.